We have a very dear friend of mine, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, who's with us. We did a show last night that'll play in a couple of weeks on collectivism, and you don't like the word capitalism.
You know why, Glenn? Because they've demonized the word in exactly the same way that years after the last of the great 19th century industrialists died, it was well into the 20th century, a self-proclaimed communist retroactively named them the robber barons, and that's the name that has stuck. Well, they're doing the same thing to the term capitalism. And it sounds cold. It unfortunately lends itself to demonization. So on the one hand, you have socialism. We care about the social concerns of society.
You know, we do a deal called, well, you know, because you listen to the show, but we do more on trivia here. And every time we ask people, just regular people, what is socialism? They say, I don't know, getting together with people?
Yes, that's right. Sure.
Right.
Listen to the word. Capitalism. Right. Are you an evil capitalist? I don't even think I have any capital. No, let's just talk about people who like making money. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing.
But money is even being demonized now.
Well,
making money is being demonized.
Exactly, and that's why we've spoken in the past, and I constantly push on this thing. You've got to understand that money is a spiritual thing. It's not a physical thing. That's a massive problem, because the minute you fall into the trap of regarding money as a metal disc or a strip of colored paper, or for that matter, the orientation of iron oxide molecules on the back of your credit card, at that point, it's now a physical object. And any physical object, it's a rule of physics, can only be in one place at a time. This book is sitting here, and if we move it to your desk, now you have it and I don't, because it's a physical object. If money is a physical object, and I have a pile of it over here, well, I must have taken it from there, because it can't be in more than one place at a time. In other words, is money more like a musical instrument, like a saxophone, or is it more like a tune? Tunes can be everywhere all at once. Money is more like tunes, but the popular mistake of viewing
wait a minute. That's why they can say, there's only a limited pile of money, because they get you to think that
the pie.
Really,
they go
with the pie,
and your slice is too big, and you're taking from everybody else.
And it's such an easy thing to persuade people of, because with my own eyes, I see you have a whole bunch of it, and I'm short. I can't pay the mortgage.
So I must have taken it from you.
Well, clearly. Mm-hmm. And that is what morally legitimizes the whole process
redistribution
of
wealth.
That's what morally legitimizes redistribution, and that's the whole endeavor, is to structure a moral framework that legitimizes the taking.
Okay, so tell me how money is spiritual. Because I look at money, I try to get people to look at taxes, not as money. They're not taking money they're taking your time.
Yes.
You've worked a quarter of the year.
That's right.
To pay them. They're not taking your time. If you can't pay your taxes, you have to go get another job. And so now they've taken the time, not just your time, but the time you would have spent with your children at night. They've taken that time.
It's critical, that point you've just made, because do we or do we not prosecute somebody who takes a .357 Magnum revolver and stands on the 20th floor of the Empire State Building? Just then, somebody who took his life by throwing himself off the 100th floor plummets past, and you shoot him. Do you get prosecuted for murder? The answer is we do.
I don't know. I've never seen that.
No, it doesn't happen.
Interesting question.
It just doesn't happen that all often. I mean, you know, New York is weird, but it still doesn't happen that frequently.
Right.
But we would prosecute a person like that. How much of his life did you take? Oh, about a millisecond or half a second. Doesn't make any difference. People's time is their life force. And when the government seizes what is, I think for many people today, close to half of your energy, your force, your lifeblood, by taking close to 50%, state, federal, sales. I mean, most people don't even know what they pay on taxes on a gallon of gasoline. Add that all in, and yes, you're a slave to the government for half of the year.
Okay, so it sounds so much better if you say it with an English accent. We've been talking here in the last half hour. I don't know if you've been able to hear.
Yes, I have.
We've been talking about, for instance, Bill Gates. I've never thought Bill Gates is an evil guy. I don't think Bill Gates is going to round people up and put them into work camps or death camps, and I don't think he's a Mengele or anything else. I do think that there are those kinds of people. I mean, we have one in North Korea. We have them in Iran. We have them everywhere. Those kinds of people do exist. We do have people in this administration that believe that we should put sterilants in drinking water. So we have those kinds of people. But most people are, for some reason or another, progressives don't see the best in people, and they don't see the worst in people. They see the worst in the average people, and then they never see the worst possibility in the educated class. And it is the educated class that get power, and then they do round you up in work camps. We're entering a time that is, have you seen anything in your lifetime like what is happening in our world, in our country, like this?
No, but of course, as you speak so often, it's vitally important that we don't restrict our understanding of how the world really works only to the tiny slice of history that we are privileged to live through ourselves. The reason we study history, the reason we love David Barton, is precisely because he allows us to live through hundreds and hundreds of years.
But we don't for some reason. You know, I've always read the Bible, and I thought to myself, and I think everybody does, how did these people not get it? How did they not see it over and over and over again? You see the Israelites going out and they're starting to build the golden calf, and you're like, dummies, this isn't going to work out. How did you forget what God had already done for you? How did that happen? And we're living that right now. Absolutely. So how do we get people to, without saying that Common Core is going to lead to death camps, how do you say to people in a logical way, we have to not give the government more power, because whether it's this guy or the next guy or the guy after that, if you get a crisis and you have nefarious people, it will lead to that. How do you get them to do it? How do you get people to look at things that way without panic or accusing somebody?
In classic rabbinic fashion, Glenn, let me answer your question.
With a question.
With a question. Why is it that if you speak about the government as being the problem, as Ronald Reagan did so often, we here in America, or at least many of us still in America, recognize it. We all smile when Ronald Reagan's joke is the most frightening words in the English language. Hi, hello, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you.
Right.
We all laugh. We understand the perils of government. But if you speak like that in Europe, if you speak like that in Great Britain or in France or in Sweden or in Norway, they think you're crazy, because all good comes from the government. Government is good. And so you've got this tussle between the big G of God and the little g of government. And it really is a tussle. As long as the big G is absent, the little g pretty much takes over.
So let me ask you this. We're doing a show tonight with Penn Jillette. He's an atheist. He is a moral, decent, honorable guy. I really like him.
Great guy.
And the more I get to know him, the more I see he struggles. He really struggles trying to be a good guy. But he's an atheist. I have a lot of religious friends that say, no. You can't bring any atheist into anything because they'll... Well, there are.
By the way, he got attacked on the other side for appearing and being your friend.
I know that. We're in exactly the same boat.
Yes, exactly.
And so how do you know what the good atheist is and the bad atheist? And that's one of the questions I want to ask you. And how does he know who the good religious person is and against the bad religious person? Because he's afraid of theocrats.
Yes.
And we're afraid of somebody who's an atheist who says there is no God. Shut up about it.
Or worse than that, creates an environment in a publicly funded university where your child and my child feels intimidated and uncomfortable.
Right. So how do we know the difference between a good atheist and a bad atheist? How can there be, if God is at the center and we can't diminish him, How can we solve that problem of really good people that are atheists and would be great allies?
I think in the same way that I am a culinary idiot. I'm a food philistine. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, put a hamburger and fries on a plate, and I'm as happy as could be. I really don't want to eat anything I do not know how to spell. I will not eat anything I don't know how to pronounce. I'm a complete ignoramus, yet. At the same time, I suspect that if I was given a very specific recipe and careful instructions, I could probably turn out a reasonable dish, even though I didn't have the slightest idea of what I was actually doing. At the end of it, a true expert would probably say, hey, you know what, if a leading chef would have done this dish, it would have been a lot better. But for the vast majority of people, what I did was pretty good. The point is that there are an awful lot of times where what you do is more important than what you believe. And so if I have the choice of two neighbors, one neighbor who really is not too crazy about Jews, got to tell you the truth, he's just not crazy about Jews, but for 10 years he's been the most fabulous neighbor, taking care of my water heater when it bursts, when my kids need anything, he's always there. He's terrific. On the other side of my house, I got a neighbor who loves me with all his heart. The only trouble is that he kicks my kids, killed my cat, and keys my car. No.
You're going to take the other neighbor.
The world, we don't judge people on their beliefs. We should judge people on their actions. And I think that's why we love Penn Jillette.
Okay. Rabbi Daniel Lapin, the author of the book, Thou Shalt Prosper, and we're going to do a show on a part of this book here in a couple of weeks, and it is amazing. If you want a moral, you want to be able to teach your kids why capitalism or making money is not okay, but good.
That's right.
Read this book, Thou Shalt Prosper.